Good afternoon. I know we have a special treat going around the tables right now. You've come on a good day. As you all know, Jeni's Splendid ice cream is here, and wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to partake. So that's going to be passed around as we continue here. I'm Mike Voinovich, and I'm a member of the CMC Board of Trustees and the Office Managing Partner of the Columbus Office of BDO. So on with today. Today's CMC, Columbus CEO, and DTZ, formerly known as Cassidy Turley, are pleased to present the next installment of our leadership series, What's on Your Mind? We are grateful to BDO, formerly SS&G, the company that I am with, nice plug, for its support of today's program as well. Won't you please help me thank our sponsors and welcome Kelly Godshall, Marketing Manager for DTZ, to the stage to introduce our speakers.
I think we're now going to change the name of Cassidy Turley to DTZ, and now it's going to be ABC because it's going to be easier to remember. Thanks, Mike. I'm excited to be here today. And as he mentioned, we were formerly Cassidy Turley. And January 5th, very recently, marked our emergence to the DTZ brand as the third largest commercial real estate firm globally. On behalf of DTZ, we are pleased to continue our support of the mission of the Columbus Metropolitan Club to engage week after week the people, the ideas, and the conversation that is important to the vitality of this community. Today, we have the honor of welcoming two highly qualified individuals to the CMC stage to discuss ice cream. And I want to eat my ice cream because I see it right there, so I'm going to go really fast. But also to talk about the challenges of a unique and rapidly growing business in a new age economy. We at DTZ are proud to be handling Jeni Splendid Ice Cream's real estate needs for the better part of the past 8 years, watching their amazing growth. Please welcome the subject of today's What's on Your Mind forum, the CEO of Jeni's Splendid Ice Creams, John Lowe, and our host, the editor of Columbus CEO, Mary Yost. Thank you for being here, Mary. The stage is yours.
All right, John. I think they probably thought that when they invited you to be here in February that this might be a slow time for you. But I have to tell you, I was at the Easton Scoop Shop over the weekend. The lines were still out the door, even in the cold weather. So you guys are doing something right.
I think they thought if they invited me, I might bring ice cream. Is what
Oh, that's what it was. Well, that would be any time of year. I want to take you back 6 years because it was a little more than 6 years. It was January of 2009 when your former drinking buddies, Jeni Britton Bauer and her husband Charlie, started talking to you about coming on board with Jeni's Splendid Ice Creams. And I know it took until July, but for you to get on board. But as you look back on that and you look at where the company is today, is it according to plan? Is it beyond your expectations? Give us a sense of your view of what this past 6 years has looked like.
First, my wife has told me for a number of years now I have to stop referring to them as old drinking buddies, and she's right. So we solved many of the world's problems over red wine is all that means. We did not know exactly what the opportunity was. I cannot claim that we're right on track to plan. We thought the opportunity was pretty big. And for me, it was when they first called, I had decided I was going to leave GE at some point. It was sort of the tail end of the financial crisis. It had been a ferocious run. And I found myself downplaying the attributes of a business in Wichita, Kansas on a PowerPoint the night before my second son was born. And I realized I was worried that the company was going to say, "That's great, John, go buy it and go run it." And I was going to have to turn to my wife and say, "Wichita." and I didn't think she would come. So I thought, I can't do this forever. And so I started flirting with companies outside of GE. And I will say, since Kathy Little is here, I always had Worthington Industries in mind. A big industrials business with a strong headquarters where I hoped I could go do a strategy job and that sort of thing. I'm still waiting for the call. And moving back to Columbus always sounded attractive to us. So they call in January of 2009 and say, Charlie says he's laying in bed. They have talked about a CEO, but they've tried a few things that haven't worked. And he says they're laying in bed, and he just turns to Jeni and says, John Lowe. No reference to CEO or we should be thinking about this or anything. And she says, yes, call him. And he gets out of bed and he calls me. And he tells me that story live on the phone, and I think, what? First of all, why are you calling me? What's wrong? It's been a year or two since we've talked. How are things? And he said, things are great. He said, we've got 4 ice cream shops. Come be our CEO. And I said something like, I'm flattered. I love you guys. You don't need a CEO for 4 ice cream shops. And they had the vision. They knew that they had created something great. And the secret sauce, in my mind, beyond amazing ice cream and Jeni's creativity, was a self-awareness about what skills they needed to add. And they had decided that they needed somebody else to come in and help grow it. And that sounded really exciting. And it also sounded like kind of a pipe dream to me. And I was thinking, like, these GE credentials and what I've been doing kind of play elsewhere. I don't know that they help me be a great 4-shop ice cream CEO. But I was intrigued enough, and they were on a very short list of people that I could sort of bet it all with, right? Like 3 college buddies and them. And so we started talking and began to think, if this truly is the world's greatest ice cream, and I didn't have a sophisticated enough palate to know whether I thought that was true or not, but we had reasons to believe that it was, we should be able to build a wholesale business. And then during that 6-month period, they opened the Dublin shop. And we had terrible financial information, but we could see people standing outside the Dublin shop waiting to get in. And we could see that this high-end artisan ice cream, a category that Jeni had created, was selling at Main and Main in an affluent suburb. And so from there, the great thinking was, we can go find more Dublin Ohios. And so we thought, at the time, the thinking was, maybe we'll go to Delaware. We're very jealous of graders having great Main and Main locations throughout great little towns or great little suburbs of Ohio. Maybe we could beat them to the next great spots. And that sounded like a safe way to grow, that we could at least create something that would pay the mortgages and help us grow something safe. And we didn't know where the wholesale business could grow. All right, fast forward 6 years, we've learned a few things. And one was the leap we made to Nashville. And we realized we had a following nationally in a way that we had hoped, but we didn't know was true. And that has enabled the leap to Chicago and Atlanta and Charleston and soon LA. Hopefully it will enable LA.
That's exciting. Well, it's probably safe to say that there's nobody else in this audience who's running an ice cream business, but they're running other kinds of businesses. What would be some of the business lessons that you learned in that growth, going from your position at GE, this Fortune 5 company, and to this little company with 4 shops, but you've grown. So what were the business lessons about how you were able to do that? Was it, I know quality is a big focus for Jeni's, but
certainly,
what would be some of the other business lessons?
So 2 things come to mind. One, how adaptable one has to be as a business leader. The skills or attributes that probably got me promoted at GE probably made me a real jerk at Jeni's, right? And occasionally I would really look like an alien in trying to talk to our creatives about what we needed to do. And it took me, frankly, too long to realize that that was my fault and my problem, not theirs. And I had been used to dealing with finance whizzes and engineers, and now I was dealing with people who were equally amazing, but in an entirely different realm. And I needed to adapt how I communicated with them, because I would show up at a meeting a week after we'd had one, and I'd be sitting there waiting for the deliverables, and they'd be looking at me like, what are you talking about, you know? And so I needed to think about how I communicated and how we sort of wrapped up meetings and encouraged people to bring notepads and that sort of thing. That's not a knock on them. That's a way that they were phenomenally successful in the way we needed them to be. That's genuinely not a knock on them. And the second was something that really stuck with me at GE, and partly just because I love telling the story. They sent me to what I call Fat Camp. And it was Jim Lair had made a real name for himself working with tennis stars in the 70s and 80s, and a lot of kids. And he had a list of great clients, and he taught them to really focus and engage for very short periods of time, how to clear their mind and work on the next 3 seconds of the serve and that sort of thing. And over time, he morphed that into the idea being to be an elite corporate athlete, you have to use some of the same skills you have to be an elite athlete. And so you're constantly traveling, you're tired, you're prone to not eating well, there's lots of reasons you don't work out, etc. And so they sent a number of us down to this, what I called Fat Camp, because as we come out into this gorgeous setting in Orlando, Florida, there's kids playing tennis out in the distance. It couldn't be more beautiful. And it's lunchtime, and I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be fantastic. And there is half of a wrap and some grain I've never seen before, you know, and maybe a little fruit or something. And I was thinking, like, that was a fantastic appetizer. Where's the meal, right? And what they were teaching us over 3 or 4 days was, you know, eat just enough to get yourself to the next meal, and then, you know, use snacking to keep your blood sugar regulated. So you're not having big peaks and valleys and whatever, and that's one of the things. And then they taught us to work out in our hotel room, which I've done 3 times since. And then part of the thing was sort of, the idea was you deal head on with your problems. And the way they taught us this was they ran us through the woods around this place, and they had dumbed it down for the GE execs. But they had a bear-like sound in the corner as we run through the woods, and they videotaped how we responded to it. And I want you to know I put all the women and children behind me and I attacked that bear, but it was more of a George Costanza effect. But then they brought us in and they showed us how some NFL athletes that had been through there reacted. And these are hulking men, right? Just huge and strong, and you see the video of them going through, and for them, they hadn't dumbed it down as much. And they're kind of jogging along, sort of laughing and giggling or whatever, and the bear pops up, and they turn and run as fast, and like just out of a movie, hilarious, they scamper away. And then they showed us a video of Navy SEALs. And they come through, same thing, bear pops up, and they all stop and turn right at the bear and assess and then start laughing and realize, you know, very quickly this is fake, right? Because we're in Florida. And that wasn't in the first 3 things that went through my mind, I promise you that. And the point is, of course, right, deal head on with your problems, assess the situation, and deal with it. And too often, I think, small businesses, particularly family-run businesses, you are, you know, in bed's the wrong phrase, you are in really close working relationships with the people around you. And when you've got the wrong person on your team, or when things aren't great, it's really easy to stick your head in the sand and not deal head on with it. And there was one way to make sure you got yourself removed from GE, and that was to not deal head on with the problems. And I am somewhat, I'm probably a little too ferocious at Jeni's about making sure we don't slip out of that. We deal head on with our problems. We sort of face into them. So those are 2 things I think I've learned along the way.
Great, those are good. Adaptability and dealing head on, those are great. One of the things that, that I've heard you say or read that you've said is that another reason for coming back to Columbus was to put down some roots, that you and your wife had something like 5 houses in 5 years. And I'm wondering, how are those roots growing now in Columbus? And I thought I knew the answer to this question before, but then you just mentioned Chase. I wanted to ask on top of that, is there anything you could envision luring you away from Columbus and Jeni's over the next 10 or 15 years?
The roots are deep. It was our 5th house in 5 years, and that needed to change. There's a lot of ways to put great pressure on a marriage and a young family, and moving is among them, right? We have one, I don't need to go into details, it's stressful. And we were shaking my wife out of great jobs along the way, big, important jobs, and that too is stressful on a marriage. And so we knew, we had a different vision for both me as a husband and a father, and sort of what we wanted from the future. So we have absolutely loved Columbus. It's exactly what we remembered and hoped it would be. You know, we had been a young couple. We just had our kid when we moved, our first child when we moved away the first time. So we will not move in the next 15 years, period. That's a little bit bold, but I really don't think she'd come this time either. So, and you know, our kids are in school and everything we want is here. We're not moving. Having said that, I don't think that I will retire as the CEO of Jeni's. Like, I think at some point it will be time. I don't know if that's next year or 10 years or some period of time, but it'll be time for me to hand over the reins to someone else, and hopefully Jeni continues to have her hand firmly on part of the reins. But you know, it takes years off your life in some respects, right? It's also, I'm amazingly lucky and I love it, and in a lot of ways I'd love to be doing it 20 years from now, but at some point I suspect I transition into other roles based in Columbus. But at some point I don't think that I'll be doing this when I'm 70.
That's a ways off.
Yeah, right.
Okay. One of the big concerns, I think, for any business is the employees, the workforce that you've got there. Most businesses will say that is their number one resource is the employees.
Plug and play.
So one of the things that I understand that you've done at Jeni's is to introduce a 1-month sabbatical for employees after 3 years. Can you talk a little bit about how that's working?
Everyone loves it, shockingly, except Jeni, Charlie, and I, because we haven't managed to take ours. Oh. But it's fun. Like, you know, it traces back to 3 or 4 years ago when we were paying far below market, right? We probably still pay below market, but we needed to find a way to sort of give some extra benefit for working at Jeni's. We expect really high performance and really great effort, but what a fun way to reward a 27-year-old who is given everything you've got, but would love to get to Spain for something, right? So that was the idea. So I think it's wonderful, and I think that now we've grown the business. We're hiring more sort of across the top leaders that are coming from other great places. Our HR team, we just recruited away from another great local retailer, And their job is to build a world-class organization, and they're doing it, and it's really fun. But I don't think we'll get rid of that particular perk because it feels so perfect for us. It feels like a reflection of the kind of business we want to be.
Oh, great. I've got a number of questions around that, but let's talk a little bit more about Jeni's and the growth that you've seen. You mentioned going to Nashville. It was not the logical place to go, and you've got your sights, on some other places that are really exciting. So what is it about when you look at that growth? I guess two things. Why do you want to grow? And what are the concerns around growing? What are the worries around growing the company as big as you might?
All right, I'm going to struggle to remember all the three answers I want to give, but I want to get back to Nashville. Made perfect sense, but when seen through what I think is the right lens. We needed to grow because of a number of things. One, our growth enables us to make better ice creams. Our ice cream is better today than it was 5 years ago. It will be better over the next several years because of
How can it be better?
Right. More advanced freezing technology, better quick blast freezers for us. Those are major capital investments that we have struggled to make, and we're really excited about being able to make them in the coming years. If you didn't grow, we knew we were going to get knocked off, right? And frankly, there are more copycat businesses across the country. Sometimes we put a picture on Instagram, and 3 days later there's an identical picture from other companies. Sometimes you can see the Jeni's cookbook in the distance, right? And I think Ben and Jerry are wonderful people. I don't know them personally. I've talked to one of them twice. I think they're wonderful people. I think they created an amazing company that was green before green was cool, and they deserve enormous accolades. I also think that Unilever has taken them down market over the last 30 years and down in quality. And someone else will emerge as the next great American ice cream company. I happen to think that Jeni is the Michael Jordan of ice cream, right? With apologies to LeBron as my pat line. She's not the best now, she's the best there's ever been. And I don't want to grow, I don't want to be 65 staring at the ceiling thinking that company that emerged to replace Ben & Jerry's should have been us, right? Like that genuinely motivates me. Les Wexner talks, and he talks about the fear of failure was what kept him going. And it's really a similar motivation for me. And I think as we grow, I know as we grow, we get to impact the world in very positive ways that we didn't get to when we were 5 ice cream shops, and that's meaningful. The Hirsch family fruit farm used to bring Jeni a flat of strawberries, and from that she made all of the roasted strawberry buttermilk ice cream she could sell at the time, right? They bring a lot of strawberries. I will get the numbers wrong, but a whole bunch, multiple trucks. And the same for the specific pumpkin we need. And they know that is like backbone for them. They know when they grow it, we'll buy it, and they can rely on it, and it allows that family farm to prosper in a way that wasn't true without our growth. And that, in some small ways makes the world a better place, we think. And we think there's other things that we do that hopefully over time mean we're doing something beyond just making the world's greatest ice cream.
So what you just covered there is your 2-part mission. Part 1 being make the world's best ice creams, and part 2, make the world a better place. One of the things I think that has helped Jeni's over the years, has helped with the growth, is that there was some good support in this community for Jeni's and for Jeni Britton Bauer personally, and that's always great. I think there were a couple of things that the Columbus Foundation made donations in Jeni's name, and that Jeni was able to participate in Leadership Columbus through a Crane Family Foundation scholarship. What are some of the ways, I would assume that Jeni's being the upstanding company it is paying forward, as Woody Hayes used to say. What are some ways that Jeni's is paying forward in appreciation for what this community has provided?
It's funny, the first thing, Jeni founded the company based around those, what we now articulate internally as our mission statement. She hates that mission statement. It sounds a little corporate-y, where it's not quite right, but it is the closest thing we've come to sort of encapsulating what I think is core to her. And she wouldn't know who Woody Hayes is, but that's all right, that's all right. But I do think that sort of core to her is paying it forward, whether she would articulate it that way or not. My favorite sort of recent, the Crane Family Foundation grant of a scholarship to her enabled her to do Leadership Columbus. I had just been in Leadership Columbus. This is back in, I don't know, late 90s or 2000 maybe. And I loved it, and I thought it opened my eyes to things that were important to have my eyes open to. And I told her, then a drinking buddy, you should do this. And she's like, that's great. It costs whatever it costs then, $5,000, and that's a non-starter. Can't do it. And I said, I think I heard something about scholarships. And she applied, she got the scholarship, and it too was a game changer for her, both in seeing the world, but also sort of connecting with great people across the city. And so more recently, we decided we needed to pay that scholarship back, and we needed to create another one, because this city is full of great young entrepreneurs who don't have a penny in their pocket, but someday will do big things in the city or nationally or internationally, and giving them a chance to have that sort of experience would be meaningful, we think. And so that's one where we hope that we're sort of paying it forward. And I don't know that we hope to be a company that that returns favors and hopefully shows some leadership in that sort of thing.
Wonderful. Did I neglect to
Nashville?
To take you back to
Thank
Nashville,
you.
right?
So why Nashville is a question I get all the time, and it's simple. One of the things that makes Columbus really special and unique is its creative class. And whether it's designers at the Limited or any number of the great retail companies that have grown up here, we are attracting big talent from the coast to fill those jobs, and they get what Jeni Britton Bauer is trying to do quicker than I would. I won't talk about all of you, but I. And if you think about, raise your hand, if you, within an hour of Apple coming out with a new operating system, you download it, right? Anyone in here? It's okay to admit, yes, 1, 2, 3. 3 or 4 early adopters, right? Those are the people we want to sell to. Those are the cutting edge. Those people, whether we want to admit it or not, will tell us whether that new thing is cool. And we will listen because we trust them. They're fully invested in deciding those sorts of things. And we as a company need to sell to those early adopters. And those early adopters are often part of the creative class. And those folks are found here in Columbus, and we think they're found in great numbers in Nashville, Tennessee. I thought it was the country music world. It turns out it's just the music industry there. And when I had resisted the push from Charlie's brother Tom for us to open a shop there, until I walked into the coffee shop near the first location and saw the cool kids all working on their MacBooks in the music industry. Some had headphones on, some were doing other things, and I thought, I get it now. We need an ice cream shop here. And they quickly, they gave us a warm welcome that we couldn't have dreamed of. So yeah, that's why
Great.
Nashville.
Now there's one question I think everybody is probably wondering and would want me to ask, and that's, what's your favorite flavor?
The hard-hitting journalism, Mary, come on.
Somebody's done it.
I try to change this answer every time I am asked it, just to be difficult. The truth of the matter is, let's go with this one, which is no longer available, versions of it available. Jeni and I are in Nashville, Tennessee. We come down, we're staying at the one of those hotels that has a free breakfast, not the nicest place, but it's not a dump either. And we meet down in the lobby, and I'm headed over to the free breakfast because that's what you do. And she says, no, we're going to the greatest biscuit place in America, Loveless Cafe. And I think, really? Like, this is free, and what do I know about, my palate's not sophisticated enough to know whether it's a great biscuit or a really good one. We go, and she says, isn't this a good biscuit? And isn't this amazing? And I think, this is a good biscuit. I have no idea if this is the best. And she says, we should put this in ice cream. And I think that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Why in the world would anyone want biscuits in their ice cream, right? Pizza and beer, separate, etc. And flash forward 6 months. It is our #1 flavor. It is the first flavor ever to exceed the sales of salty caramel. And it was then my favorite, and it remains special. And it's one of those things that, there's a reason I call Jeni the Michael Jordan of ice cream. Like, that's not just heaping praise on a friend and business partner. Like, she has a special ability and talent and is a force of creative, she's a creative force in a way that is a really, really small portion of our population. So that's the one that comes to mind now.
They're all great.
They are all great. Right?
In a minute, we're going to be opening up for some questions from the audience. So if you want to be thinking about your questions, you can get those ready. We haven't talked about Eat Well distribution, but that's an arm of Jeni's that I think you are responsible for creating. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how it fits with what you're doing at Jeni's?
Yes. I don't know that we've yet figured out exactly what Eat Well should be. We've tried a number of things with it. Here was the vision. We had to create a great marketing team, great sales team, and great ice cream fulfillment, frozen fulfillment, to build the wholesale business. And we got really good at telling our story to frozen food buyers across the country. And also in packing up into boxes of 45 pints with 20 pounds of dry ice and direct shipping to specialty food retailers across the country, which, by the way, is not the right way to build a business, we now know. But we didn't have any accounts, so we couldn't get any distributors to carry our ice cream, and so we had to do it ourselves. And because of that, we had 3 great assets and thought there are a number of potential other Jeni's in other sorts of things. Bretzel, Luna Burger were high on our list of, if you freeze that could be really special and great, and maybe we can use our strengths to help them. And it's worked. It's also difficult, right? Those are really small businesses that don't have the capital to scale. It's a tack on to their core business of keeping the shop open and that sort of thing. So we added to that. We knew that we needed Jeni's as a $10 or $12 or $14 initial buy for someone in Seattle who may have heard of Jeni's or who may not have. It's really important for us to get them to try the ice cream. So we needed to have people sampling the product in grocery stores around the country. That is done by small businesses that we don't think tell our story very compellingly. And so we wanted to build that ourselves. And so we built this network around the country through Eat Well of great, what we call brand ambassadors, people who are good at telling the story as they sample, explaining Jeni's the Michael Jordan, although we don't use that publicly, et cetera, et cetera. And she started what's become known as artisan ice cream. Salty caramel wasn't anything other than a 400-year-old French recipe before Jeni Britton Bauer came along, et cetera, et cetera. And we then use that company to sell those services to others, because once you've found a really good brand ambassador, you want to do everything you can to keep them busy, because if you don't, they'll go find another job and then you got to retrain somebody else. And we think that's really core to growing the wholesale business. And so Eat Well is a good arm for Jeni's and other businesses trying to do something similar. And we're trying to do DSD, direct store delivery, in Chicago to grocery stores now on the backs of our own trucks that we have to have in Chicago for our own shop. That represents a game changer potentially, if we're smart enough to make it work, in growing our own distribution network. If we do that, it's special. The cost of doing that is ridiculous, and we haven't proven that we're smart enough to pull it off yet. But if we are, and you can get other great high-end special craft products on that truck with you, you can bring your own cost down. And that's what we're trying to play with in Chicago and some other cities. Time will tell whether that's successful. And I'm not, as much as I love the model of it, I'm not sure that we're actually going to pull it off.
Okay, well, good luck with that. We'll stay tuned. I think we are about ready for audience questions now, and it is the Columbus, you should be, Columbus Metropolitan Club tradition to take audience questions. So we're asking that you please state your name, ask your question, and we'll thank you in advance for not making long editorial comments, but John is ready for your questions.
I'm David Hanselman at Ohio State University School of Environment and Natural Resources. And I believe Jeni's is really well known for your sustainability and environmental stewardship motivations and what you've done. You mentioned local sourcing of food, but I'd hope to hear a little bit more about why that's so important to the company and your customers. And I believe you became the first B-Lab certified company in Ohio even, and what that means for you all.
Thank you. I appreciate the suggestion. We are a certified B Corp. That is sort of a recognition of the way Jeni has run the company from the beginning, which is to make sure we're not just looking at the bottom line, we're looking at the way we impact the world. I think our decision to put a person exclusively focused on sustainability and help us make sure we're decreasing our carbon footprint and decreasing our use of styrofoam whenever possible, et cetera, decreasing our water use, has been really special and impactful. And I'm proud of that. There was another question. What was the, help me, I forgot it already.
The B certified?
The B certified and...
Well, and local sourcing of food.
Oh, the local sourcing, yeah.
And the sustainability efforts of those companies you acquire products from.
So the local sourcing of food is really, it's tricky, and here's why. Local matters for only two reasons, in my humble opinion. If it tastes better, or if it's better for the world, right? If you can get the world's greatest black raspberries in Ohio, then darn it, we ought to use them, and we do, and you can. But vanilla beans aren't a great product of Ohio. They're rather horrible, frankly. And so we've been, bringing in international shipments and not local for as long as the company's been around, and that's just fine. I think we have to be the best, and when the product has to be the best, and when the product is the best because we're able to get something locally, that's awesome. And otherwise, we should only do it if it's improving the world because it's decreasing in transportation and the like. And frankly, Jeni was local food before local food was a thing, right? Founding member of Local Matters. But I think the local food movement is really an eat well movement. And I think when we say local food, we mean one of the two things I said, or we mean less processed, less chemicals and names on ingredient lists we can't identify. And when we are eating locally, it's from a producer who's not a scientist and so isn't putting those things into the food they produce. And so we know, or we believe, healthier, and probably know, healthier and without the things we don't want in our food. And I think over time, what we will call local food will be a less processed, healthier, eating well movement, which has nothing to do with why we might have named a company Eat Well Distribution.
Hi, Andy Campbell. Thank you for being here, John. This question actually comes from Chris Graves, who's at our MetroCast location in Easton, and I think it's related to some of what you're talking about there in regards to ingredients. But what are your plans and how are you able to maintain quality with exponential growth?
There can be no growth without maintaining quality. We talk about it all the time. If we slip on quality because we grow, we should and we will go out of business. I don't know if I should say, my phrase about ice cream internally is that even the crappy stuff is pretty good, right? You mix butterfat and sugar and you get something decent. So ours has to be really exceptional. It has to be the best. And so we cannot grow by taking our eye off of quality. We refer to it as our North Star. Frankly, as CEO, I'm really lucky because the founder is a bulldog about the quality of our ice cream. And there's nothing that gets her worked up more than it being less than spectacular. And so I kind of don't even have to worry about it. But we cannot let that slip as we grow. And if we're getting close, we have to stop. And there's no question about that. Second thing is the customer service. We do that arguably really well. If you go on TripAdvisor today and ask for the #1 rated restaurant in Nashville, Tennessee, you're told it's Jeni Splendid Ice Creams, which is a reflection both of the quality of the ice cream, but the quality of the service and the team that is able to talk about what influenced Jeni, what was motivating her when she created it, that when you're eating Queen City Cayenne, you're gonna get the burn on the back of your throat 2 seconds after you eat it. That touch is really important, and we're doing it well. We can improve, but we're doing it in a special way at the moment, and that too cannot slip.
Thank you. Jane Scott from the Metropolitan Club. John, I heard you speak one other time. We were talking about how important the culture is within Jeni's as far as the employees. And as any company grows and they get farther away from Bob Evans or farther away from Colonel Sanders or farther away from Jeni's, what kinds of things are you doing to maintain that culture? And then I have another question for you personally. Was there a defining moment when you said, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to help Jeni and Charlie to grow their business?
The keeping Jeni front and center and available to our employees is something I spend a lot of time worrying about, because when the difference between an employee on the line scooping ice cream that has met and engaged with Jeni or hasn't is really big. She's as endearing and empowering and encouraging and great as they come. And when she has touched an employee, we get the benefit of that. And so finding ways to make sure that continues is really important to us. Our HR team has brought in software from a company in Charleston, South Carolina, that enables us to do videos, enables us to communicate in real time information about the new flavors, quotes from Jeni, videos from Jeni, etc. And we've focused on, historically, a company lunch where the entire company comes together. We cook for the kitchen was the idea, although that quickly broke down because they're really good at it. And we've got to find ways of replicating that, and frankly, we haven't done enough. Jeni and I have to be on a road show. We have to find more constructive ways to spend time with employees as we grow. And we're working on that, but that's really important to keeping the culture the way it is. Yeah. And I'm sorry, the personal was, when did I decide, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing? Hopefully when I talked my wife into me making the leap. but I knew it was going to be good. There was an early moment, I'm trying to decide how much of this story to tell. They had spent some cash designing a new pint. All right, so they'd spent some time, and the designs were back, and it was sort of like, let's make some final tweaks and then we're going with this. And I had been on board about a week and a half, and I was seeing lots of trouble with the then design. And I said to Jeni, we can't do this. If I was Nestle copying Jeni's, this is what I would do. And it's not operational for a number of reasons I won't go into. And I didn't say it with enough, your name's on the door, you've been doing this for a while. I didn't put the tact in I should have. And as soon as I said it, I thought, I could have done that differently, right? And she paused, and I was sort of standing over her looking at the designs. She was sitting, and she sort of looked up. She said, yep, you're right. Let's scratch it. Let's stick with what we're doing. And it was not only is she smart and all of those things, but she's also capable of hearing no, analyzing it and deciding, yep, you're right, and then saying it. Like, not a lot of business leaders that can do that, especially to the new guy, especially with other people in the room. And that's when I knew, like, all right, this is going to be special. I can say things to her because of the long friendship, because of the trust, and together we might get to do some fun things.
John Martine-Steger from Kegler Brown. We miss you, but we're
Martine.
thrilled with what you are doing with Jeni and Charlie. My question has to do with social media. Jeni's is known as an absolute master at social media. Would you share with us a little bit about how Jeni's got to that position, and then maybe the good, the bad, and the ugly about the use of social media to grow business?
Thank you. I do think we're really top notch, and I can say that because I don't have a darn thing to do with it. A guy that was selling insurance to us a long time ago came to Charlie and I and said, you don't get the value of Twitter. I'm going to handle your Twitter account for some period of time for free, but you got to trust me to do it. I got to do it. And we knew him, Charlie knew him a little bit, and he put together PowerPoint presentations. He had a way of talking in those that made us believe. And he handled them, and it was great. And I still didn't get it. And I remember thinking at the time, we can't pay $30,000 for somebody to tweet to somebody that takes a picture of our ice cream. Like, that's just not, like, I don't know what that is per scoop, but we can't do it. There's no way. But, you know, within a few months, I wasn't returning phone calls fast enough on the wholesale business, and we needed a salesperson. And I thought, if he can sell insurance and make a little bit of a name for himself and survive in that world, then if we hand him the world's greatest ice cream, he's probably going to be able to handle that. And he surely has thick skin and heard no a number of times selling insurance, so selling ice cream, he'll be all right. And he did that job for a long time. And then we made him the marketing director, which was a disaster for a lot of reasons, not his fault. And then finally we said, all right, you finally, 3.5 years later, you get the job you came here for. Handle social, own digital for us. And he has been absolutely spectacular. His name's Ryan Morgan. He thinks he's months ahead of the rest of the world. If any of you try to recruit him, I'll kill you. He's built a team, right? We've got some real talent around him. And we have a creative force around Jeni of videographer, photographers, design folks. We decided to do it 100% in-house, which is not a small investment, but we think for a company that essentially does no marketing, it's everything we've got. And the idea is we're just trying to give a peek into the kitchen. We want people to see the way the ice cream is made. We want them to see Jeni in the test kitchen, and from that, good things will happen. And I think they've done an absolutely extraordinary job of doing that in the last several years.
Okay. What keeps you up at night, really quick, and then we'll turn it back to Mike.
Oh man, I wish I had a good answer for the final question. What keeps me up at night? Finding the right. I worry a lot about fully engaged employees, and as we grow, finding top talent that's 100% in and that are sweating it like everybody else. Seth Godin tells a story of the mom and pop bowling alleys. How many of them, there are thousands of them in the 50s, how many of them became 10 bowling alley chains? The answer is 0, right? It's a quantum leap to go from one to the other. We're in the midst of that quantum leap. The reason mom and pop couldn't do it is because they had to get capital and district managers and policies and procedures and people that for minimum wage would keep the place clean and treat the customers great the way they did when they were fully in hock and everything they had was tied to the success of that one bowling alley. We're in the midst of that quantum leap. We have to find people that, not quite minimum wage, but not high wage, are interacting with our customers on a daily basis. And that's difficult, and it's really important, and that keeps me up at night.
Great, thank you. That's a great way to end this, and congratulations on all your success and the success of the organization. We're proud to have you here in Columbus, Ohio. I hope you enjoyed today's forum and your Jeni's Splendid ice cream, which those of you who come here regularly know that's a special treat. Remember that you can view and share all of the forums on CTV, Columbus Television, and on WOSU and PBS affiliates statewide through the Ohio channel, and anytime on CMC's website via YouTube. Once more, thanks to our sponsors, Columbus CEO, DTZ, and BDO, and thanks to our speakers, John Lowe and Mary Yost. Thanks to all of you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks.